Hi, I'm Bonnie Barker with BonnieBayCrochet.com, and today I want to show you two different ways to work the honeycomb stitch. Before we get started, I wanted to just give you a little sample of what this stitch can look like when combined with other cabling stitches. And just notice how the honeycombs can be stacked and how when you crochet multiple rows of them, other honeycombs appear in between. So let's go ahead and learn this stitch. I'm going to be starting in just a base of 26 double crochets plus the turning chain, and I have chained 2. I'm going to skip the first stitch since we're going to be working in post stitches. I'm going to wrap my hook 2 times. Okay, I'm going to skip this first stitch, and I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches as well. And we're going to work a front post treble crochet around that next stitch and the next stitch. And for a post stitch, if you've never worked a post stitch, you simply bring the hook around the body of the stitch instead of working through the top loops. Okay, now this is where it gets a little tricky. Working behind these 2 stitches that we just made, we're going to go and we're going to work a treble crochet around the second stitch and the third stitch that were skipped. Okay, and in doing so, I like to use the nerve endings in my tall man and my thumbkin to find the next stitch that I'm going to crochet around, and you can even stick your thumb up in there to find that stitch. It seems like crochet calisthenics at first, or gymnastics, but it really isn't. Okay, skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in those next 2 stitches. Now working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Okay, just like that. Let's pause. And it's almost like you've made this giant V with these stitches. And just for the record, if you want to make a larger or smaller swatch, all you need is a multiple of 8 stitches plus 2. So 8 stitches plus 2, that's the number of stitches you'll be working on. You're going to need to add 2 or 3 for your turning chain to that multiple. Skip the next 2 stitches. We're going to make another honeycomb. Now notice that before I do that, we skip 3 stitches at the beginning. That's just because we're at the edge of the sample. Going forward throughout the pattern, you're just going to skip 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, now working behind these 2 stitches that we just made, we're going to come into this opening here, and we're going to front post treble over the first or the 2 stitches we skipped, this one and then this one. So let's start with this stitch, and again, I know where this is. Okay, right there. And you can even pull the stitches back to see this. You can even pull this back like this if you would like. We'll find that next double crochet. Okay, now we skip 2 stitches again, 1, 2, and we front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Okay, let's pause and take another look. So as we go across these crosses, the stitches on the outside should go down this direction and then back up, down, and then up like V's, like thick 2 stitch wide V's. Okay, we have one more. Do one more with you. Skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and front post treble in the next 2 stitches. And again, working behind these 2 stitches, we're going to come and we're going to front post treble in these 2 stitches that we skipped. And again, if you need to pull this back, you can do that to reveal that stitch. And we just have the other side to do. Skip 2 and front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Working in front of these last 2 stitches, we front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. And let's just work a double crochet in that last stitch, and that last stitch is going to help act as a border stitch so we can make our turns properly. So we're going to turn, chain 2, and this is going to be the easy part. Go ahead and work a half double crochet in that first stitch. Now going across, we're going to work in these cables, we're just going to work back post double crochets, not treble, but back post double crochets in each stitch all the way across. I'll do a few of these with you. Okay, and there are going to be 4 on each side of this honeycomb cable, so make sure that you do a total of 8 back post double crochets for each honeycomb cable that you are crocheting. Otherwise you may lose a stitch, and then of course nobody likes to be ripping things out to correct them. But on the other hand, that is part of learning and something that I've certainly embraced. Ripping out, or frogging as we call it in the crochet world, simply because it means we have to rip it, and it sounds a lot like a frog. I say that because friends have asked me, what in the world are you talking about? So just trying to help explain some crochet lingo here, but hopefully you don't become too well acquainted with frogging or ripping. But again, that is part of the learning process. So let me show you how this will look. This is with the front side facing after working those back post double crochet. So I'm going to complete working the back post double crochets across the row, and then I'm going to work a half double crochet right in that chain 2 space. Now we're ready to work row number 3 for the honeycomb. We're going to chain 2. We're going to skip this first stitch, and we're going to skip the first 2 post stitches as well, since we're working from the beginning of the row. And we're going to work front post treble crochets in those next 2 stitches. And now working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble crochet in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and front post treble crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now working behind these stitches that we just made, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. And again, if you need to pull this back to find this stitch, that's perfectly fine. Okay, and let's pause and take a look at what we've just done. Okay, so you can see now that the honeycomb is enclosed. Okay, so the stitches that we worked here, we've worked on this side, and the stitches working in front, we worked on this side. So it's kind of reversed when you come to work the 3rd row of this stitch. I'll go ahead and repeat that for you. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble crochet in the next 2 stitches, working in front of those 2 stitches, we front post treble in those 2 stitches we just skipped, skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, now working behind those last 2 stitches, we're going to come into this hole and we're going to we are going to front post treble in the 2 skip stitches. Again, this is probably the more trickier of the moves, but you can even pull this back to reveal the stitches as well. Okay, let's pause again. And now we have 2 honeycombs across, and they will be further defined once we complete row 4. So go ahead and repeat that one more time across this one, and then I'm going to work a half double in the last turning chain. For row 4, it is worked the same as row number 2. We're going to chain 2, and then we are going to work back post double crochets in each stitch across. Now be sure that these are back post doubles and not back post trebles. That's very important. So go ahead and work those back post double crochets, 8 per honeycomb cable, and work those all the way across. When you get to the end of the row, simply work a half double crochet in that turning chain. So after completing 4 rows of the honeycomb stitch, which is a 4-row repeat, this is what it looks like. This is when you're using front post treble crochets to form the honeycombs. Now I want to demonstrate a second way of making the honeycomb stitch, and again I'm using a base of 26 stitches, not including the turning chain. And so for this we're also going to chain 2, and we're going to skip the first stitch at the beginning of the row and the next 2 stitches, and instead of using treble crochets we're going to work front post double crochets over the next 2 stitches. And working behind these 2 stitches, we're going to work front post double crochets again in the second and in the third stitch that was skipped. You can bring that down and reveal those stitches. Okay, again, only we're working front post double crochet. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post double in the next 2 stitches, working in front of those 2 stitches, front post double in those 2 stitches just skipped. And we're going to repeat that across. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post double in the next 2 stitches, working behind those 2 stitches. We're going to front post double in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then we're going to front post double in the next 2 stitches. Some of my designs require this particular technique. Working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to front post double in the 2 stitches that we skipped. For example, the Doolin Delight Sweater Wrap uses this particular method using front post double crochets instead of the trebles, and you can see it's a much more compact stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this across, basically using the same technique that I just demonstrated with the trebles, but we're using double front post double crochets. For row number 2, we're going to chain 2, and it's the same as we did in the first sample. We're just going to work back post double crochets across each stitch across the row, and make sure that you work 8 back post double crochets for each honeycomb cable. Now we're ready for row 3. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to skip the first stitch and the next 2 stitches. We're going to front post double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post double crochet in the 2 stitches skipped. Again, just like we did in the first sample, except that we're using double crochets now. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Working behind these 2 stitches, we're going to front post double crochet in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. And then we're going to repeat that across the row. Skip 2, front post double in the next 2 stitches. Working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post double in the 2 skipped stitches. Skip the next 2, front post double in the next 2 stitches. Working behind those 2 stitches, we can actually pull these back. Wait a minute. Okay, we're going to locate them. Okay, so we can locate them right there. And it's actually easier to use your fingers, but you just wanted to show them to you that you can see them. Okay. Let's do that one properly. All right, let's take a look at this. So this is working on row 3, and you can see this is a much more compact version. This is with the trebles, and this is with the doubles. I'm going to go ahead and finish out this last honeycomb, and then we'll work row 4. For row 4, it is worked the same way as row number 2. Whenever the back side is facing, we're going to skip the first stitch, of course, of the row, and we're going to work back post double crochets in each stitch across, and just right as they go in line. We're not skipping anything or crossing anything. We're just working 8 back post double crochets for each honeycomb cable. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row, and as always, I'm ending with a half double crochet in the turning chain. So once again, I wanted to show you the treble crochet and the double crochet version, and just how they still look similar, but obviously the one with the double crochets is much more compact, where the one with the treble crochets has more open space to it. So it just depends on what you're looking for. I wanted to show you another example. Here's an example of the honeycomb stitch using double crochets worked in many rows, and just show you how with the honeycombs, how other honeycombs form in between the more rows that you work it. This is the Doolin Delight, and this is coming to my channel February 2021, so be looking for that. Just to show you just how you can do this with the double crochets. But again, there are many other designs out there that use the same stitch using front and back post treble crochet. So just be careful as you read through any of these patterns that you are using the proper stitch. Well, I hope this is helpful to you. If you did enjoy this, please hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything coming to my channel. God bless. Bye-bye.